Imagine a car that never needs gas, never plugs into a charger, and never runs out of power. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? And yet, this very machine might already exist, not in Silicon Valley, not in Germany, but in Africa. The concept of a fully self-sustaining car has been deemed impossible by the world's leading scientists and engineers. Even Elon Musk dismissed the idea as pseudoscience. But one quiet inventor from Zimbabwe might have just done the unthinkable, created a self-charging car that could overturn the entire global automotive industry. This isn't just a story about a new kind of vehicle. It's a story about a continent rising up with innovation born not from luxury but from necessity. While Western media continues to fixate on Tesla's next model or the latest production delays, a silent automotive revolution is reshaping the map in a place few thought to look. This is the story of how Africa may have just leapfrogged the world. Real quick, if you're into videos that cut through the noise and break things down clearly, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people find this. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. We've got more deep dives coming your way. Also, drop a comment and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your take. Now onto the video. Maxwell Chikumbutso isn't a household name, but perhaps he should be. A self-taught inventor from Zimbabwe, Chikumbutso stunned the world in 2015 when he unveiled a prototype electric car that he claimed could power itself indefinitely. At the time, most experts dismissed it as a hoax. The science seemed implausible. Critics quickly pointed out that such a machine would violate the known laws of physics, especially the first and second laws of thermodynamics. But Chikumbutso wasn't swayed. He insisted that he had developed a unique technology capable of converting radio frequency signals into usable electrical energy, enough to run a vehicle continuously. The concept itself isn't entirely new. Scientists have long theorized about capturing ambient energy, whether from solar radiation, thermal gradients, or radio waves, but doing so efficiently and on a scale large enough to power a car has remained elusive. No major automaker has even come close to producing a commercially viable version of such a system. And yet, Chikumbutso claims he has achieved just that. Fast forward to today, and footage has emerged from various sources appearing to show the car in action. Videos show the vehicle moving with no cables, no fuel input, and no apparent external power source. Several independent journalists and observers, including engineers, have reportedly witnessed demonstrations and left puzzled. One tech blogger noted, "Whatever is happening here, it's either the greatest scientific fraud of the decade or the most revolutionary leap in automotive history." Elon Musk himself reacted to these claims with open skepticism. In a now viral tweet, Musk said, "A car that defies energy conservation laws? Highly unlikely. I call BS until proven otherwise." His dismissal reflects the position of much of the established scientific and engineering community. And yet, curiosity continues to grow. Chikumbutso has not yet released blueprints or allowed open scientific review of the technology, fueling both skepticism and speculation. Some theorists believe he may be using ultra-high-efficiency radio frequency converters, combined with custom capacitors and lightweight construction, to harness and store ambient energy in ways not previously possible. While no one can yet verify the details, the implications are profound. If the technology is real, it would not just disrupt the auto industry, it would fundamentally shift the energy sector as a whole. Consider the consequences. No more dependence on oil, no need for charging stations, no utility grid reliance. Developing nations with limited infrastructure could leapfrog into an era of autonomous clean mobility. The environmental benefits alone would be historic. Still, many hurdles remain. Without transparency, the scientific community remains wary. Governments, too, are unsure how to approach a technology that could upend decades of policy and investment in renewable energy. But one thing is clear, the conversation has started and it's not going away. This isn't just about one car or one inventor, it's about the possibility of rewriting the rules. Chikumbutso's invention, if proven viable, would not just be an automotive breakthrough. It would be a redefinition of what we believe is possible. While the Western world debates software updates, autonomous driving, and flashy EV unveilings, something far more practical is happening under the radar. Africa is building its own automotive empire, and it's not based on luxury or futuristic tech. It's driven by survival, necessity, and a keen understanding of local needs. For decades, the continent was seen as a dumping ground for used cars from Europe and Asia. But that's changing fast. In Morocco, auto exports have soared. Over 400,000 vehicles were shipped out in a single year, making the country the continent's top car exporter. With strong ties to European markets, Morocco is producing vehicles that meet global standards, and it's doing so efficiently. South Africa, meanwhile, has become a manufacturing powerhouse, home to plants from BMW, Ford, and Toyota. The industry employs more than 100,000 people and contributes around 7% to the country's GDP. But the most compelling stories are not from foreign automakers setting up shop. They come from local brands, homegrown African manufacturers creating cars for African roads. Nigeria's Innocent Motors is a standout example. Rather than assemble knockdown kits from foreign suppliers, they build durable vehicles from scratch, using designs made for rugged environments, extreme heat, poor road conditions, and limited service access. This kind of innovation is rarely celebrated in Western media. Headlines focus on Tesla's production targets or Volkswagen's electric transition, while African engineers solve problems that affect millions. These are cars not designed for comfort, but for resilience. High ground clearance, steel-reinforced suspension, and dust-proof systems are standard features, not optional add-ons. What's fueling this growth is necessity. Many regions across Africa lack consistent infrastructure. Long distances between towns, rough terrain, and unreliable fuel supplies have created demand for cars that are simple, tough, and efficient. Electric vehicles have potential, but conventional EVs often fail in these conditions due to the lack of charging stations and the complexity of repairs. This is where self-sustaining energy solutions enter the picture. The idea of cars that don't need refueling or recharging is incredibly appealing in rural Africa. With power outages common and roads often impassable, a car that can generate its own energy and require minimal maintenance isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Moreover, Africa's auto boom isn't just economic. It's social and cultural. Thousands of jobs are being created. Skills are being transferred. Pride is being restored. In countries long seen as dependent on foreign aid or imports, the auto industry is offering something different: self-reliance and growth. Perhaps most remarkably, African automakers aren't trying to copy Western designs. They're redefining what a car should be. In the process, they may be shaping the future of mobility for the entire world. Where the West sees innovation in terms of sleekness and software, Africa sees it in durability and independence. And now, with the advent of technologies like Chikumbutso's self-charging car, Africa's position in the global automotive landscape may shift from follower to leader. The revolution is already underway, it's just that most of the world hasn't noticed yet. In much of the world, the image of the modern car is tied to sleek designs, high-speed capabilities, and luxury features. From touchscreens and lane assist systems to heated seats and AI-powered infotainment, cars have become status symbols as much as they are vehicles. But in Africa, the concept of the automobile is being reimagined from the ground up. The question isn't how smart is the tech, it's will it survive out here? Africa's roads tell a different story than those of Europe, the United States, or Japan. In many areas, paved highways are the exception, not the norm. Flooded dirt paths, crumbling tarmac, potholes the size of bathtubs, and extreme weather are part of daily life. To survive here, a car needs more than performance. It needs to be tough, resilient, and ready for anything. That's exactly what African manufacturers have focused on. Their vehicles are purpose-built for survival, not luxury. They come with reinforced suspensions, high ground clearance, and mechanical simplicity that makes field repairs possible with basic tools. Many are designed to double as multi-purpose utility vehicles. One car might serve a farmer in the morning, a small business owner in the afternoon, and a local doctor in the evening. Dust-proof electronics and waterproofed critical systems are becoming standard in African-made vehicles. Unlike Tesla's complex architecture, which requires certified service technicians for most repairs, African vehicles emphasize accessibility. If a car breaks down in the bush, there's no towing it to a service center 100 kilometers away. The parts need to be fixable on site, often with limited equipment. This grounded approach extends to power systems too. In areas where electricity is inconsistent or unavailable, EVs that require charging become liabilities. That's why the idea of a self-charging vehicle is revolutionary. It doesn't just represent an upgrade, it solves a real persistent problem. In remote communities where people can't count on gas stations or reliable electricity, a car that powers itself could be life-changing. More than transportation, these cars become lifelines. For example, mobile medical units using durable, self-powered vehicles can deliver care to villages hours away from urban centers. Small-scale traders can transport goods to market without relying on expensive fuel. Parents can take children to school regardless of seasonal floods or unmaintained roads. In a world where climate change is creating more extreme conditions globally, this African model could soon become the standard elsewhere. Western cities are not immune to infrastructure breakdowns, and in many disaster-stricken regions, survival-grade vehicles would be more valuable than autonomous parking or touchless climate control. This design first for function mindset is precisely why the African auto movement is so significant. It's not competing with the likes of Tesla on glitz or software sophistication. It's rewriting the definition of what a car should do, who it should serve, and how it should operate when nothing else works. In doing so, it may become a model to for a new generation of transportation, practical, autonomous in energy, and built to endure. The automotive world has long been driven by a race to luxury. Africa may have just restarted that race towards something more essential: survival. While Western automakers hesitated, scoffed, or dismissed Africa's self-charging car as a fringe development, one global player moved decisively: China. Known for its rapid industrial pivots and pragmatic investment style, China saw the innovation for what it potentially was: a global game changer. And instead of standing back, it stepped forward, forming quiet but powerful partnerships across the continent. Chinese companies have long cultivated economic relationships in Africa, particularly in mining, infrastructure, and telecommunications. But the automotive sector has now become a new frontier. Where American and European firms were wary of untested technologies and guarded their intellectual property fiercely, Chinese companies moved quickly to collaborate. The payoff, they reasoned, could be enormous. Joint ventures began springing up between Chinese firms and African auto startups. In Kenya, engineers from a Chinese EV tech giant teamed up with local developers to refine radio frequency energy converters. In Uganda, Chinese capital helped accelerate the development of self-charging buses aimed at transforming public transportation. These were not minor experiments. They were coordinated efforts to develop scalable, exportable technologies. China's motivation wasn't just about making a better car. It was about reshaping its influence in the global EV market. While the West debated the scientific validity of self-charging systems, China acted. With a rapidly growing domestic EV industry and a vast logistics network, it was perfectly positioned to help manufacture and distribute these vehicles at scale. For China, this move also offered a strategic geopolitical advantage. By aligning with African innovation, it presented itself not as a dominating force, but as a willing collaborator. This approach contrasted sharply with the West's often paternalistic attitude toward African economies. Chinese investors avoided pushing for majority control and instead emphasized joint growth and shared technology, a message that resonated deeply across the continent. Meanwhile, automakers like Tesla, Volkswagen, and Ford watched from the sidelines, uncertain whether to engage, ignore, or counter. Elon Musk in particular found himself in a tough spot. Publicly, he dismissed the concept. Privately, Sources suggested growing unease within Tesla as China deepened its involvement. Chinese automakers such as BYD and Geely were already producing EVs at scale. Now, with access to groundbreaking technology and Africa's robust test environments, they could leap ahead of Western competitors. If self-charging cars proved viable, China would be first in line to dominate this entirely new category of clean energy vehicles. Furthermore, the implications extended beyond the auto market. A successful self-charging vehicle would signal a broader readiness for radio frequency and ambient energy systems. That could open doors for new kinds of consumer electronics, energy-independent homes, and off-grid infrastructure, all sectors China is eager to lead. In the end, China's strategic gamble is about more than cars. It's about securing a foothold in the future of energy itself. And it all began with a decision few in the West dared to make: to take Africa's innovation seriously. Elon Musk has faced his share of challenges, from production delays and software bugs to shareholder battles and regulatory scrutiny, but never before has he faced a threat quite like this: a homegrown African innovation, rapidly gaining traction, quietly backed by China, and openly challenging Tesla's entire business model. At the heart of Tesla's empire is a vast infrastructure of batteries, charging networks, and proprietary systems. Billions have been invested in lithium extraction, gigafactories, and superchargers. This network isn't just a convenience, it's a cornerstone of Tesla's value proposition. So when news of a self-charging car that required none of that began to surface, alarm bells rang across Tesla's executive floor. Initially, Musk responded with mockery. He labeled the idea as pseudoscience and warned consumers against being misled. But as more video evidence emerged and as Tesla engineers analyzed public footage and user-released demos, concern began to seep in. The internal consensus shifted from laughter to investigation. Behind the scenes, Tesla launched a quiet review. Engineering teams were tasked with exploring whether ambient radio frequency energy could feasibly power a vehicle. The results were inconclusive. While existing tech didn't support such energy efficiency at scale, the possibility wasn't entirely ruled out. In parallel, Tesla began exploring alternative energy systems through a confidential initiative dubbed Project Infinite. The goal? To create a semi-autonomous energy system that could supplement current battery systems, reduce reliance on charging stations, and buy Tesla time if Chikumbutso's claims were ever validated. Musk, known for his bold pivots, even considered acquiring licensing rights or forming a partnership with African developers. But the optics were problematic. Having dismissed the technology so publicly, any sudden reversal would appear reactionary. Tesla's brand, rooted in innovation and leadership, couldn't afford to look like it was playing catch-up. Investor sentiment began to shift. Share prices wobbled. Analysts began asking questions on earnings calls. Would Tesla's massive investment in charging infrastructure become a stranded asset? Was the company at risk of being leapfrogged by a startup from a continent long ignored in the EV race? Musk doubled down on PR efforts, promoting new battery breakthroughs and doubling Tesla's investment in lithium partnerships. But insiders knew this was more than just another tech disruption. It was an existential threat. If Chikumbutso's vehicle, or something like it, could be mass-produced and validated, Tesla's dominance in EVs would be undermined. The company would be forced to pivot from its core strategies, rethinking not only product design, but its entire supply chain. For the first time in years, Tesla was no longer leading the race. It was responding. And in the high-speed world of technological innovation, the moment you start reacting instead of directing, you're already behind. The global electric vehicle EV industry has long revolved around one central component: the lithium-ion battery. These high-density energy storage units power everything from smartphones to Teslas, and their dominance has fueled a multi-billion-dollar global economy. Companies like Panasonic, CATL, and LG Energy Solution have invested billions into battery research and manufacturing, while nations such as Bolivia, Chile, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo have built their economies around lithium mining. But all of that now stands on uncertain ground. The emergence of a self-charging vehicle, one that doesn't require plug-in charging or lithium-based storage, poses a direct existential threat to the battery economy. If this innovation proves scalable, it could render much of the current EV infrastructure obsolete. Charging stations, battery recycling plants, and lithium extraction facilities could become the coal plants of the 21st century, relics of an outdated system. For countries that rely heavily on lithium exports, the ramifications could be disastrous. In Bolivia, lithium is often referred to as the white gold of the future. Yet, if self-charging vehicles reduce or eliminate demand for lithium, this projected wealth could evaporate overnight. Chile and the DRC face similar risks. Local communities that have seen both economic opportunity and environmental degradation from lithium mining now wonder whether they'll be left with neither. Major battery manufacturers are already reacting. Some have begun diversifying their portfolios, investing in hydrogen fuel cells or exploring solid-state battery tech. But these moves may be too little, too late. The promise of vehicles that require no charging infrastructure is too disruptive to ignore, and potentially too efficient to compete with using traditional batteries. Environmentalists are facing a dilemma of their own. On one hand, the decline in lithium mining could reduce the ecological harm caused by extraction, particularly in sensitive salt flat ecosystems and rainforest areas. On the other hand, the collapse of this industry could trigger economic instability, unemployment, and unrest in already vulnerable regions. Governments are also grappling with the implications. The United States, China, and the EU have spent years subsidizing battery production and EV charging networks. If these investments lose relevance, policymakers will need to justify billions in public spending that may no longer serve their intended purpose. Tesla, with its massive investments in battery tech and charging networks, faces perhaps the greatest risk. If vehicles no longer require its supercharger network, the company would lose one of its key competitive advantages. The very infrastructure that once set it apart could become a financial burden, a monument to a bygone era of electric mobility. Investors are watching closely. While many are still betting on the longevity of battery tech, the very fact that an alternative exists is enough to rattle confidence. Some analysts are already adjusting long-term projections for battery manufacturers, while hedge funds quietly shift resources toward emerging energy technologies. This isn't just a disruption, it's a paradigm shift. If the global economy has been betting on lithium, then the advent of self-sustaining vehicles may be the black swan event that rewrites the rules. Like the fall of coal in the face of solar, the battery economy may now face a similar reckoning, and the world will have to adapt. In the global conversation about automation and AI replacing jobs, Africa is writing a different story. While Western factories increasingly rely on robotics and AI-driven production lines, African car makers are placing people at the center of their industrial revolution. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the emerging self-charging car sector. From Zimbabwe to Nigeria, factory floors are buzzing, not with machines, but with people. Skilled technicians, engineers, and line workers are building vehicles with their hands, applying mechanical ingenuity and localized knowledge to every component. Unlike Tesla's sterile, highly automated gigafactories, African automotive plants emphasize manual skill development, craftsmanship, and human oversight. The result is a labor movement not just fueled by jobs, but by pride. Workers aren't simply assembling products, they're participating in what many see as a national or even continental achievement. The creation of a new kind of car, a vehicle that charges itself, built in Africa for Africans, has become a powerful symbol of progress. In South Africa, more than 100,000 people are employed in the auto sector. In Zimbabwe and Nigeria, smaller but fast-growing factories are creating similar employment waves. And this isn't just about economic numbers, it's about social transformation. Families that once lived below the poverty line are now supported by stable factory jobs. Entire communities are being revitalized by the economic ripple effects of vehicle production. Labor unions, often portrayed as resistant to change in industrialized nations, are taking a different stance in Africa. Instead of pushing back against new technologies, they are embracing the self-charging car as a vehicle for sustainable employment. Union leaders are advocating for upskilling programs, safe working conditions, and equitable wages, creating a template for responsible, inclusive industrial growth. There is also an educational dimension. Many factories have begun partnering with vocational schools and technical colleges to create pipelines of talent. Young people who once saw few opportunities beyond agriculture or informal labor now envision careers in automotive engineering, electronics, and sustainable energy. The self-charging car isn't just changing how people move, it's changing how people work, learn, and aspire. Perhaps most critically, this labor renaissance challenges the dominant narrative that advanced technology must come at the cost of human jobs. Africa is proving that technological advancement and human employment are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they can be mutually reinforcing. Where Western tech companies are often criticized for displacing workers, African innovators are showing how tech can empower them. Instead of building machines to replace people, they are building machines with people. The pride on the faces of workers rolling the first self-charging cars off the line is unmistakable. They are not just employees, they are pioneers. In this new industrial model, dignity is built into the process. And as more countries seek to redefine the relationship between labor and technology, Africa's approach may offer a blueprint that balances innovation with inclusion, efficiency with empowerment. While engineers fine-tune systems and governments debate policies, a quieter yet equally powerful force is reshaping the global automotive landscape: the consumer. The rise of the self-charging car is not just a technological or industrial breakthrough, it's a shift in public expectation. Around the world, people are beginning to ask a simple but disruptive question. If a car can power itself, why should I settle for one that doesn't? This question is being asked in rural Kenya, bustling Lagos, and increasingly in urban centers across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The appeal of a vehicle that never needs refueling or recharging is both economic and psychological. For many consumers, especially those in low-income or off-grid regions, energy independence is not just attractive, it's essential. The savings potential is staggering. Charging an EV may be cheaper than fueling a gasoline car, but electricity still costs money, and that's assuming you have reliable access. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa, even charging an electric scooter can be a logistical challenge. Now, imagine owning a car that doesn't depend on any external power source, a car that simply moves always. That's freedom. Consumers in developed countries are catching on as well. While Tesla buyers were once considered early adopters of futuristic tech, some are now questioning whether the future may have outpaced them. EV forums are flooded with discussions about Maxwell Chikumbutso's invention. Social media users share viral videos asking if this is the next big thing and wondering why their car still needs to plug in. Some early adopters are going even further. A small but growing number of importers are seeking ways to bring African-built self-charging vehicles into their home markets. Influencers, automotive YouTubers, and tech bloggers are beginning to test drive prototypes, often walking away amazed. The buzz is building, and it's not just a trend, it's a movement. At the heart of this movement is a desire for autonomy. Just as mobile phones liberated users from landlines, self-sustaining vehicles promise liberation from fueling infrastructure. For consumers in rural or underserved areas, that's revolutionary. For eco-conscious city dwellers, it's empowering. Automakers are paying attention. Consumer surveys now reflect a growing interest in energy independence. Traditional EV buyers, once content with long charging times and limited range, now expect more. Automakers that fail to meet these rising expectations risk losing market share to newer, more agile players. This is the moment where consumer demand intersects with technological capability, and it's shifting the balance of power. No longer are automakers in control of defining what the future looks like. Consumers are doing that themselves by asking for more, demanding better, and choosing differently. The self-charging car, born in Africa, is becoming a symbol of what consumers truly want: freedom from fuel, freedom from wires, and freedom from compromise. And the industry is being forced to listen. As Africa surges ahead with its self-charging automotive breakthrough, the rest of the world is waking up to a harsh new reality. The future of mobility may no longer be written in Detroit, Stuttgart, or Tokyo. It could be shaped in Harare, Lagos, or Nairobi. Global automakers who once led the charge toward electrification are now scrambling to adjust their strategies to a market that is rapidly moving beyond batteries and charging stations. Volkswagen, which has committed to becoming an all-electric brand within the next decade, is reportedly holding internal meetings to assess the implications of self-sustaining vehicles. Executives are asking difficult questions. What happens to our roadmap if energy independence becomes standard? What do we do with our investment in battery tech worth billions? How do we pivot fast enough to stay relevant? Ford and General Motors, two of America's biggest car makers, are quietly exploring ambient energy harvesting. In recent months, both companies have filed patents related to energy capture from radio frequencies, vibration, and even solar microwaves. These moves signal that even legacy automakers are considering post-battery futures. Toyota, long conservative in its approach to battery EVs and a staunch defender of hybrid technology, is rumored to be in early talks with tech startups exploring self-sustaining systems. Their logic is simple. If self-charging cars work, hybrids may also become obsolete. The company's survival may depend on how quickly it can adapt to this new paradigm. Meanwhile, countries that have invested heavily in charging infrastructure, like the US, Germany, and the UK, are facing a potential policy crisis. Billions have been spent building networks of chargers to encourage EV adoption. But what happens when vehicles no longer need them? Some governments are now reviewing their budgets, pausing new charging projects, and commissioning studies into ambient energy alternatives. The ripple effects are being felt across adjacent industries. Utility companies, which saw EV charging as a growth area, may now have to reconsider expansion plans. Companies that produce EV chargers, power transformers, and smart grid management software could be left with warehouses full of outdated equipment. The entire EV ecosystem, from charging apps to subscription battery services, faces a wave of disruption. Insurance and logistics sectors are also feeling the shock. A self-charging car that's simpler, more reliable, and less dependent on infrastructure changes the risk profile for insurers. Fleets that don't need to refuel or recharge could revolutionize supply chain logistics, especially in regions where fuel costs and downtime erode profit margins. Even big oil, already under pressure from climate goals and investor divestment, must now factor in the possibility of widespread transportation energy independence. If this technology scales, even alternative fuels like hydrogen and biofuels may struggle to find a foothold. In short, the global auto industry is facing a moment of truth. The plans they've spent decades building may no longer apply. And the companies that adapt quickly will survive, while those that hesitate may be left behind. For the first time in over a century, the automotive innovation curve isn't being led by Europe, Asia, or North America. It's being redrawn by Africa. What began as a seemingly implausible claim from a Zimbabwean inventor has grown into a movement that could reshape the future of global transportation, energy, and economics. The self-charging car, once dismissed as fantasy, now stands as a symbol of what's possible when innovation is driven by purpose rather than prestige. Africa's journey from automotive underdog to global pioneer didn't happen overnight. It was born out of necessity, built on resilience, and powered by a vision to solve problems that the rest of the world had overlooked. And in doing so, it has done more than create a new kind of car. It has ignited a global reckoning. Tesla, Volkswagen, Ford, and governments worldwide now face a new question, not just how to adapt, but how to catch up. Because for once, they're not leading the change. They're responding to it. From labor unions to university labs, from dusty roads to gleaming prototypes, the African self-charging car represents more than a technological leap. It represents a shift in who gets to define the future. And if Africa can lead the way in reinventing transportation, who's to say what it can't do next? The future isn't coming. It's already here. And it started in Harare. Once again, thanks for watching this video. If you got something out of this, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Agree, disagree, or something in between. I'd love to hear it.